Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about the Game of Thrones tarot deck and explore whether it is still current or not after the end of the 8th season. So in this video you will learn whether it is still worth buying it, or even more worth buying it maybe, and whether you have it or not. I think this video is going to be very interesting because I explore a lot of the cards and a lot of the plot twists and characters, everything that happened and may have completely changed the direction of this tarot deck. We are going to look at which cards are especially vulnerable to being uncurrent or irrelevant at this point, which cards maybe even make more sense than they did before, and who shouldn't be in this deck at all. So let's look at the facts real quick. Game of Thrones has, as of this week in May 2019, ended in its 8th season. This deck was released on the 2nd of January 2017, which means that it was released right in the middle between season 6 and season 7. So season 7 and 8, which are sometimes considered to be the most pivotal and turnaroundy seasons, are not in this deck at all because obviously they hadn't happened yet. So being released before the two last pivotal seasons, can it really still hold true? And do the energies of the characters depicted in the cards still reflect the meaning of tarot as a system? So let me quickly talk about tarot. Tarot is a system that works with archetypal energies that embody a lot of the strengths and weaknesses and troubles that us humans go through. For example, the 5 of Cups is about grief, the 7 of Cups is about indecision and lack of action, the 7 of Pentacles is about the grind, about patience, about letting results show. And like this, tarot as a system is almost an all-encompassing system that helps us understand and explore our own psyche as well as the human condition. In that, it is very similar to Game of Thrones, with them showing so many facets of humanity, of people and their feelings and their actions. So honestly, when I got this tarot deck, I thought it was a match made in heaven because Game of Thrones and tarot, the systems just kind of go together. The stories go together. If you want a deeper dive into this deck, I also made a full review on it. I will link that below. So if you know me, Anya Esma, then you know that I love structures. I love categories. That is why I have divided the deck into 3 different categories. The first 2 categories are pretty safe from becoming uncurrent or irrelevant, and the third category, that is the problematic one. We are going to start by talking about the first 2 now and kind of breeze through them. In the first category, we have all of the cards that have general imagery that is kind of everlasting. It may take place in places that do not exist anymore, but the scenes themselves are so general and have no recognizable characters that they are still valid and still current. This has the 4 of Swords, just a general burial preparation for someone dying. The 10 of Spears. In this deck, the spears are wands. The World, which does have the 4 houses, but all of Westeros. The Wheel of Fortune, also with the 4 houses. The 7 of Coins, some random old guy. The 10 of Coins, a meal that could be the wedding meal of Marjorie and Joffrey, who knows, but it is a general scene. The 3 of Cups, they kind of look like Northerners, but other than that, you can't determine anything. The 3 of Swords. The 8 of Wands. And the 5 of Wands. All of these have no recognizable characters, so that we can't say whether they are current or not current. Of course, they feature some characters that may not exist anymore, or our view of them may have changed, like the Unsullied, but I would say these cards are still very valid. The second category are specific scenes that you cannot change. Even if a character has changed, these cards depict specific scenes from the story of Game of Thrones and still embody the energy of the card. That is, for example, the 4 of Cups, Littlefinger speaking to Sansa in Winterfell. The 8 of Swords, Brienne being captured and being imprisoned with Jaime. The 5 of Swords, Bran giving up Winterfell. The Eight of Cups, Jon Snow leaving the Night's Watch. The Three of Coins, which is the Three of Discs or Pentacles. There are different words for this, which is the cathedral that was built by the people who Sandor Clegane the Hound met. And the Ten of Swords, which shows the place that Jon Snow died. And the Ace of Coins, where Arya is holding the coin that the Faceless Man gave her at the beginning of her journey alone. Now these cards, as you can see, specific scenes, specific meanings, not much can change about that at all. Now let's move on to the third category, which is the character-focused cards. These cards sometimes have no context at all, no specific scene, and that is why they become problematic, because obviously the characters have changed a whole lot throughout seasons 7 and 8, and we are going to examine these cards and see if they are still current. I have separated this category of character-focused cards into two more categories. Characters that do change in seasons 7 and 8, and characters that do not change much anymore or are dead anyways, so they cannot change anymore. Okay, so the first category of the last category is the people who have not changed a lot because either they are already dead and have been since a lot of seasons, or they simply have not had any character development. So, first of all, we have Ned Stark. He is Justice and the King of Wands. In this deck, the wands are called spears. Now, this fiery energy of speaking the truth, even to your own detriment, and of always doing the right, loyal thing, of being a pinnacle of upstanding honesty, that is a very fiery thing. So the King of Wands, with this worried look on his face, I think it fits him very, very well. Justice also still fits. This is when he sits on the Iron Throne after Robert dies. This character has obviously not changed since season 1. We have learned more information about him, such as that he kept the true mother of Jon Snow hidden and the true father, but he still more or less remains the same character. The second character is Melisandre. She is the High Priestess. She has not changed a lot either. She still has magical powers. She is still intuitive. Unfortunately, there is no focus on her story with the Red Priestesses in seasons 7 and 8, so that all we really know is that she is still intuitive. She can scry, see the future in the fire, has magical powers, and she kind of, even though she is the High Priestess, goes into the direction of a sorceress. I have made a video about the difference between High Priestess and Sorceress and how they relate to each other. So I will link that down below as well if you want to hear more about Melisandre as the Sorceress. The third character, I will make it quick, is Ramsay Bolton. He is the Knight of Swords, the Devil, and the Hanged Man. In my opinion, Ramsay Bolton should never have been in this deck at all because tarot is a very nuanced and very all-encompassing system, and he is a purely evil character. He has no redeeming qualities, no redeeming story arc whatsoever, unless you count when his lover dies and he is slightly sad, but that's about it. Other than that, he is completely hateable, bad, does nothing good, nothing redeeming. Now, yes, as unfitting as always. Good old Ramsay. Olenna Tyrell as the Queen of Coins or the Queen of Discs, Pentacles, whatever you want to call the suit. Yes, very fitting. She secures her family. She is always a point of calm, of wisdom, of silence, and she mostly protects her family in a very gentle way, unless when she kills Joffrey, obviously. But I would say she still fits very well, the Queen of Coins. Littlefinger. He has been featured in this deck heavily. At this point, he feels irrelevant to me. This kind of makes these cards uncurrent. They feel uncurrent for me. Tell me how you feel about it, but I feel like he has been dead for ages, is completely irrelevant, nobody ever talks about him again. So yes, the Magician kind of fits him because he does change reality in accordance with will, which is the basis of magic. Three of Wands as well. He is manipulative and kind of just watches everything happen. And the King of Coins, they made him this because he is the Master of Coin, which I find incredibly uncreative. I would not have made that choice because if you look at Olenna as the Queen of Coins and him as the King of Coins, do you see these two go together at all? No, me neither. He is not someone who provides for others, who cares for others, who makes stability for others. Then lastly, with this first category of characters that have not changed, we have the Night King. He has not changed because he cannot speak. He does not say a single intelligible word in the whole season in any of Game of Thrones. So he has no character development, unfortunately. His story is never told. That being said, judgment still fits him. He is the call that everybody needs to answer to, that everybody needs to pay attention to. King of Swords, uncompromising because he cannot communicate and he does not communicate with anyone. So it still fits him, but unfortunately the character remains very pale. Get it? Get it? Very pale. Okay, let us come to the second category of the last category, which is the most interesting cards. These are the cards that feature characters that have changed and that underwent big plot changes, big character development changes, and we will see whether the cards are still valid or not. Especially in danger are the cards that only feature the character without any context. But there is one saving element that kind of holds it together, and I will show you what that is. We will start with the Starks, then we talk about the Lannister, and then we talk about the four kind of outsider characters that don't have obvious families that belong together. Let us start with Jon Snow. He is very loyal, just like Ned. He is kind of removed from a lot of the story in a very strange way because he makes very few own decisions that really matter in the long run, except for his big decision to kill Daenerys, obviously. And this is one of the pivotal moments of the show and one of the redeeming moments for Jon Snow, who has been inactive a lot of the time and not very self-governed. Now let's talk about his cards. He is the King of Cups, which I find fitting because I have always seen him as a very emotionally relevant character. He acts in an emotional way and he kind of relates to people in an understanding, emotional manner. So I think the King of Cups as an intuitive and warm-hearted person fits him very well. The Lovers with Ygritte, brilliant card, absolutely still valid. The two polar opposites, get it? Polar opposites, yeah. Which is really what the Lovers are all about. It is a card about bringing together contrasts, bringing together parts of yourself that seem different. You have Jon Snow's loyalty and his stoicism, and you have Ygritte, who is a very free-spirited, almost creative person, and very sassy. So you have these two opposites coming together. Beautiful card. Now let us get to a problematic card, the Emperor. This card has always been problematic for Jon Snow, but honestly, after what happened in the last season, this might even fit him better than it did before, because Jon Snow, with as little agency and self-driven action he has had, has never seemed like the Emperor to me. He is not much of a builder. He does not build his self, nor does he build an empire around him, a business, anything. He is really just a supporter of others. However, now that he has killed Daenerys, at least he has done one intensely personal action that he made himself. So I can kind of see him as the Emperor, and I can see this card as now meaning difficult decisions, making difficult decisions to help build something bigger than yourself. Next, we have Sansa Stark. The first card that she is in is the Six of Cups along with Jon Snow. I enjoy this card very much. This is when they reconvene in, I believe, season 6, when they meet again and reminisce about their time as children. Incredibly fitting and will not change. The Starr. Yeah, this is when she signals to Brienne for help. This is also a specific scene, so this card is not in danger of being uncurrent. And lastly, she is the Queen of Cups, which I find incredibly unfitting, especially after the 8th season, because she has never cared much for the feelings of other people. She has always followed her own motives more than anything else. And to me, it is even implied that she is the one who suggests sending Jon to the wall in the last season so that she can become Queen of the North and does not have any other contestants for this title. I think she's a little bit manipulative. She is not intuitive, emotional, understanding. I love her, but she has no loyalty other than to herself. Thus, the Queen of Cups doesn't quite work. It should have been Catelyn Stark 100%. Then we have Bran, the all-seeing, all-understanding, past and future vision-equipped man. For me, the last season has completely ruined him because he is now an intensely suspicious and negative character for me. He has known about the mass murder that Daenerys would commit, and he did nothing. He lifted not a finger so that he could be king in the very end. His inactiveness is an act in itself. And for so long, he has said he cannot act, he cannot change anything. This goes very well with the Seven of Cups. But in his daydreams, in his visions, even if he cannot act, he probably should have acted. And now that he's the king, he needs to act anyways. So being the person who is complicit in her actions, I think, it gives a very negative light to these cards. His unwillingness to react is the downfall of King's Landing. He could have prevented it in some way, but he doesn't. So the Seven of Cups is definitely fitting. We all know what he went for in the end. The crown up here, that is what he knew he would have and willingly sacrificed thousands of lives to get. The Hermit, fitting. He still has long hair. This is his three-eyed raven study period, basically, so no issues with that. Page of Cups, intuitive, yes, though he doesn't have the activity and the agency that a lot of pages have. He's more of a messenger type. And then the Tower, again, a very specific scene where he falls and becomes the character he is meant to be, so still fitting as well. But in general, I will not read these cards the same way because Bran, to me, is definitely complicit in mass murder. His unwillingness to react to anything has led to a lot of trouble. And now he needs to act anyways, so it's not like he is not allowed to act. Then lastly, we have Arya, who managed to overcome her lust for revenge in the last season and completely turn around her character. All of her cards refer to very specific situations. We have the Two of Swords, where she needs to choose between the wooden sword, which is the faceless woman, and her little needle, which is her old self, obviously. A brilliant card. We have the Five of Coins, where she is sitting, trying to figure out what she's going to do as the faceless woman who is now blind and cannot do anything. And we have Death, which kind of doesn't fit her anymore because she stopped being the bringer of death in the very last season, but at the same time she has undergone so many deaths of the ego and character changes that it does fit her after all, in my opinion. Now, the Lannisters. Jaime. Jaime is one of the characters that has undergone the biggest development in season 8, in my opinion, and also in season 7. He has had a lot happen to him. He has made a lot of decisions, and in the end, he was not able to overcome his self-hatred for the things he has done and for the things that others have seen him do and why they hate him. And he has internalized this. He has not been able to let go of it, and goes back to Cersei, which I personally liked that decision because I can see how he should be the character to not leave behind everything. He cannot leave behind his self-hatred, and I think that's poetic. Knight of Spears / Knight of Wands. This card, it doesn't make much sense to me anymore. This is kind of his proud, arrogant side where he goes where nobody else dares to go, and that's not really him anymore. So this is one of the cards that I feel is the least current in my opinion, and I may have trouble reading it or may need to rethink how to read it in the future. I do think that it is fitting that he is associated with the element of fire because he is impulsive. He is not a great strategist, which brings us to his sister, Cersei. All of her cards are very specific scenes. You have the Queen of Swords and the Five of Cups. Both of these are after she loses her children. It is clearly apparent from her short hair and her costume. She no longer wears the red and gold of the earlier seasons when she was still comfortable. She only wears black now. So these are about as valid as they were before. Five of Cups, still brilliant, complete grief over the loss of her children. Queen of Swords, conviction, protecting her position of power, protecting her family. No issues here. I will still read these cards as I did before because Cersei, her character never changed a lot. She was always uncompromising. After her children died, she just wanted to see the world burn, and that's how it remains till the end of the show. Tyrion, besides Jaime, he is one of the most intriguing characters for me. His love for women has always been his detriment. Whether it is Shae, Cersei, or Daenerys, he always believes he can change them, he can reason with them, but he never learns his lesson that he cannot influence these women. Now, why the Fool bothers me now? He always gets thrown in new situations. He has to find his footing, so he is a good representation of the Fool. However, his unwillingness to leave his comfort zone is problematic because the Fool does leave his comfort zone, but Tyrion's comfort zone, let me tell you, is in the shadow of powerful women. Shae, Cersei, Daenerys, that is where he is most comfortable. And in the end, he kind of leaves it and tries to save Jaime and tries to change everything by defying Daenerys, and then also throws away the hand of the king brooch. And that is the first time he steps out of the shadow, out of his comfort zone. So it is still a fitting card. The Page of Coins probably fits him better now. This blind support for others has been amplified within the past few seasons, and I quite like that because that is one of the main aspects of his character, that he is a supporter. He supports strong women and strong people, just like the Page of Coins as a very reliable advisor would do. Now let us get to the other characters that aren't tightly knit into a family. We start with Brienne of Tarth, who is strength and the Knight of Coins. And yes, just like Olenna as the Knight of Coins, she brings stability. She helps others. She supports others. She is there to save and support the Stark daughters and protect them. So it's very fitting. Strength of will, it really fits her very much because she has had to overcome some weaknesses, some insecurities. And in the end, she is the one who is trying to help Jaime be strong, face his demons, and be okay with himself and not hate himself. She tries that through love and through being strong for him, but it does not work in the end. But still, this card fits her even better now, in my opinion, because she tries to take his self-loathing away and be that strong spot for him. Also, she is holding Oathkeeper here, which of course is a very strong symbol of being true to your word, strong of will. And then we have Samwell Tarly. He is in 3 cards that all still fit. 7 of Swords, a specific scene where he steals his father's sword. 9 of Cups, where he enjoys his time at the Citadel, also very fitting. And then Temperance, which I think is even more fitting now, because Temperance is an intensely alchemical card. And not only does he manage to alchemize himself by finding self-acceptance and finding bravery within himself, but also does he become a catalyst for change by telling Jon that he is the true king. Now, we all know that that plot doesn't go anywhere, but still, he tried. He's a catalyst. He is an alchemical force in this show, so Temperance is a very fitting card for him. Now, Varys in these 2 cards, the 6 of Coins and the Hierophant, these actually fit him better as well now that the story has progressed. The 6 of Coins, which is all about balance and about restoring justice to those who are less fortunate than you, fits him better now because that was never a focus point of his character. He always seemed manipulative, but nobody ever knew why. It was foreshadowed before or mentioned before, but in the 8th season, he really goes full on, I do it for the people, and that is why the 6 of Coins is perfect now. The Hierophant has, it's a card of spiritual leaders, mental leaders who are fascinating and have charisma and people follow them. And this kind of highlights the tragedy of his character because, especially in the end, he has the wisdom, he has the knowledge, he has the intuition, but nobody listens because he doesn't have the charisma or the reputation that he needs. So the Hierophant is kind of turned around with Varys a little bit, because he is not the person the people follow, but he is the person that some people at least should definitely follow. Now let's get to Daenerys. Of course, one of the most problematic characters who has gone through one of the biggest shifts in TV show history. And what saves these cards from becoming irrelevant and strange and uncurrent is the costumes, because she, in these cards, always wears her good old blue and white wardrobe that shows her in her old self before she had her dramatic turn. And her lust for the blood of her enemies, which she has always had, combined with her belief that her moral compass is infallible and she is always on the right side, has driven her towards a problematic path. She knows no mercy and has never known mercy for people who disagree with her. And that has always been like this in the show. Even though she says she wants to break the cycle, which is probably kind of the cycle of violence, and she wants to break the wheel and change the world, she still operates very much and has always operated within the same logic that others do, except she had a moral compass that was good, in our opinion, in the earlier seasons, and then turns bad in the later seasons when she just becomes convinced that she always knows best and acts upon that without any advice from anyone else that she can take seriously. Now that is a grim turn, but there are still cards that show specific scenes and show her in her old costumes. 6 of Wands or Spears in this deck. She is the leader, still fitting. 9 of Coins, enjoying herself in the gardens with her baby dragons, still fitting. 2 of Wands or Spears, still fitting because she is plotting to take over Westeros in this picture, though that does get a little bit of a bitter aftertaste because we know how her plan turns out now. And then we have the Empress, which I think is the card that is the most affected by this whole change in her character, at least in my opinion. I don't know if I can still read the Empress as what it is supposed to be, which is nurturing, building something, supporting others. That is just not who Daenerys is anymore, and even though she is wearing her old costume, I can't forget that she has taken a turn. She wants to conquer, she wants to not build, but destroy in the end. She wants to destroy the wheel. She never wanted to build a better Westeros. She wanted to destroy the wheel, whatever that was for her. And I think that is what her character became defined by, destruction, not building something new and something better. And then these two, the Queen of Wands / Spears and the Chariot, have taken on a very particular negative flavor for me because it seems quite scary now, that dragon plus the Dothraki, which have always been brutal, bad people, and no matter what the cost, she gets what she wants. That is the Queen of Wands that she is, which isn't unfitting, but it definitely doesn't reflect the positive side of the Queen of Wands or the Chariot anymore, because the Chariot is about action in accordance with will, which, yes, she does do that, but in a very scary way. So my final verdict is that especially the cards with Daenerys have changed towards the negative, as could be expected, but most of the cards are still valid, and actually they are often even better, because either they have a better connection to what the original tarot meaning is, like Varys, for example, or they reflect the old Game of Thrones. If you are someone who was put off by season 7 and 8, this deck is still for you. It reflects the old feeling, the old characters, the old wit of Game of Thrones, in my opinion. There's also a booklet that goes with it that has all of the information about where the scenes are from on the cards. So having these specific scenes and having the costumes really saves the deck. It makes it feel current, even though it has none of the stuff from season 7 and 8. It doesn't make it feel old, at least. And honestly, I'm glad they made it beforehand, because it would have been very messy if they had made this deck after the end of Game of Thrones and had to completely change all of Daenerys' cards. Who would be the Queen of Wands? Not Daenerys, probably. Who would be the Chariot? I don't know. It's very, very good that they made this as early as they did before those 2 turnaround seasons. But even if you don't just push away the 8th season and try to forget about it, this deck is still valid. It is still good to read with, except for the Daenerys cards, in my personal opinion. Let me know what you think about this, whether you are put off by Daenerys now. I will link both of my Game of Thrones tarot videos below. Feel free to subscribe if you like this. I create tarot content, witchcraft content, and a lot of other things. And I hope that you have the greatest of days, the greatest of weeks, and have fun watching the next video.